Welcome to a new episode of Opening Bid. I'm Yahoo Finance Executive Editor Brian Sozzi. This, of course, is the podcast that will leave you a smarter and better investor. At least that's, in fact, the goal. I'm really excited to have this conversation because it is on one of Yahoo Finance's most treasured stocks, treasured companies. That is Nvidia. I believe that's the company that originally won our Company of the Year award in 2016. And ever since then, you've seen sales and earnings essentially go like this, right along with the stock price. See, my finger's actually running off the screen. But for this conversation, I want to bring in EMJ Capital founder Eric Jackson. And it was Eric, we just talked a couple, maybe 3-4 months ago, and you just made another good call on a stock, Eric, in Nvidia, and laid out a really good case. The stock has moved up, but, as you mentioned off camera, sometimes it doesn't go up every single day, but Nvidia has gone up really up and to the right since we last spoke. So let me put this question to you because it's something I'm getting from a lot of investors on our platform in the wake of the election results. Is a second Trump presidency good for Nvidia?
It's hard to draw a straight line between AI or Nvidia and Trump. I mean, Trump is obviously very pro-crypto. You saw that in sort of the days after his election, kind of the ebullience going into crypto. And so AI, there have been some interesting stories recently about, I don't know if you follow the Goatsius Maximus, where there was this like AI bot who created a meme coin and sort of over a 2-week period, it went from like zero value to something like almost $1 billion market cap. So I think there's some interesting ways that AI is kind of infiltrating, all corners of tech. But in general, obviously, Trump is very pro-growth, low taxes. That's going to sweep up all of tech, and that includes AI.
Let me see. The argument that I've seen in the early going after the election, it is this. President-elect Trump is going to be friendly toward the energy industry, and that might benefit a lot of the hyperscalers building out this AI infrastructure. And if they can get more access to nuclear, you get more need for Nvidia chips. Is that like the dots that investors should be connecting?
Yeah. Again, like one of the first days after Trump election, you saw these players like Core Scientific, TerraWolf, which I own, and these are sort of the HPC kind of crypto players. So they're former kind of started their lives as crypto miners, and now they've grown in attraction because they've already hooked up to the energy grid. And so you have other hyperscalers knocking on their doors saying, hey, maybe a faster way of us getting access to the grid is by doing a deal with you, as opposed to regenerating 3 Mile Island or building some new data center from scratch. So yeah, definitely the energy play is sort of part of the mix here, along with crypto.
Of course, we've seen a pretty sizable move in Bitcoin ahead of the election. We've seen that continue after the election. When I first came in contact with Nvidia 7 or 8 years ago, they were still up and coming, but they were initially known, they were first on gaming, then became the Bitcoin mining play. Is Nvidia poised to become the next, are they a Bitcoin mining play again in 2025, given how an incoming Trump administration may be supportive of Bitcoin? Keep in mind, on the campaign trail, President Trump talked about making the U.S. a superpower for Bitcoin.
Yeah, definitely. When I was kind of playing Nvidia in 2018, 2019 kind of period, they were kind of known for 3 things, and none of which was AI. It was the Bitcoin mining. It was sort of like the chips in the cars that were going to kind of, and then obviously their historical kind of core business was sort of the graphics gaming business. And so it's been interesting to see how, obviously AI has exploded over the last couple of years, but crypto itself has definitely, is going to be a part of this resurgence. It has bounced back significantly since 2022. It's interesting that, FTX is now kind of paying out, their trustees in bankruptcy, not just kind of people getting their assets back, but getting them with a return. Solana has been on a tear.
That's wild. That's wild to think about that, Eric. Holy cow.
Yeah, I know. So I think Solana has really kind of emerged almost this year as in some ways like a more attractive kind of alternative play to Bitcoin, overtaking Ethereum, which has sort of traditionally been seen as the number two coin. So, Bitcoin mining itself, will probably make a comeback if crypto does take another leg up. You hear all kinds of folks saying now we've busted through 75,000 with Bitcoin, so 100,000 is on the table, and in excess of 100,000. You start seeing those kinds of moves over the next few months. Obviously, it's going to get the animal spirits back into the whole crypto mix. It's going to be interesting to watch to see if you get these altcoins like this Goatius Maximus coin that's kind of come out of nowhere. So yeah, I think more fun ahead.
We haven't talked about crypto in the past, you and I. Are you a crypto bull?
I am. I do think that there's, I think that AI plus crypto is a very interesting kind of collaboration that really hasn't been explored yet. So there's a few ways that this could play out. Obviously, like I mentioned, this kind of meme coin coming out of nowhere and getting promoted by AI. It's like a fascinating story where Mark Andreessen finds this like interesting AI bot that some New Zealand developer created, who was trained on a bunch of like kind of Reddit and subreddit pages. So it has a bit of an edge to it when it tweets out. And so Andreessen decides to send this bot $50,000 in Bitcoin to kind of, support the developer. And all of a sudden, a few months later, a meme coin gets created associated with this bot, because the bot is sort of tweeting out, the bot's life philosophy. We haven't yet got, and then somebody informs the bot that a meme coin's been created for it. And then the bot promotes it. And then that's what takes it from like, zero value to like almost $1 billion. We haven't got to the point yet where the AI bots are actually doing the trading. But that's probably coming besides the promotion. So it's, I think crypto is just emerging as this like alternative money class. And so, and whereas people have kind of poo-pooed the meme coins, it's going to be interesting to see just like, what is it? Like, obviously you have things like Dogecoin, which, continues to persist as sort of like this alternative currency out there. And what if, we just see all sorts of like alternative currencies emerge, and what's going to get promoted and what's going to be interesting. So I think AI and crypto are going to continue to be interesting places to watch over the next few months.
I think part of the move in crypto, if you're reading the tea leaves, was, after the election, that SEC Chair Gary Gensler gets the boot. So we get a more pro-digital asset SEC chairman in there. What could they do to support the industry?
Well, I think, obviously promoting approvals of all kinds of ETFs, for example. Like we have Ethereum ETFs, we have Bitcoin ETFs. We don't have yet really like Solana ETFs. We don't have kind of additional smaller altcoins ETFs. I've heard, there's a coin there's a stock that I'm an investor in called DeFi Technologies that is has a bunch of European ETFs, does some crypto trading, has like its own proprietary crypto trading desk. It only trades on a Canadian exchange now, plus OTC in the US. They've been trying to do an uplisting for a while. Mike Novogratz has his own firm, Galaxy Digital, which for some reason he decided to take public through a Canadian issue, but it's not listed in the US. Getting those kinds of stocks approved by the SEC is obviously going to give people a lot more choices, so that they don't have to just directly invest in crypto, but there are going to be more stock ways or ETF ways to express an opinion on crypto through an easier means, through your IRA or what have you. So I think you're going to see that. I think Trump's talk about doing a strategic Bitcoin reserve is obviously bullish, as sort of like an underlying bid for that currency as well. So I think there are just a lot of ways that the government could show support for crypto over the next few months.
Hang with us, Eric. We're going to go off for a quick break. We'll be right back on Opening Bid. Welcome back to Opening Bid. Having a fun chat on all things Nvidia, mixed in with a little crypto with EMJ Capital founder Eric Jackson. Eric, let me get back onto Nvidia. You know, I went back and I looked at some prior Jensen interviews from like 2017, 2018, when President Trump was in the office. And, you know, that was kind of amidst the trade war with China. Now, Nvidia does business in China, but they also have people that help to build the technology that they sell in the US in China. So if we do get a trade war, I mean, do you think that impacts the innovation pipeline from an Nvidia?
Well, they've already, I mean, the biggest way that's affected them so far, and this happened with Biden sort of continuing or stepping up the kind of restrictions on their ability to sell into China, is they basically had to kind of write down their China business. It was like a meaningful part of their quarterly earnings every quarter, and they've sort of had to take it down to zero. Now that there's another story, as you say, you know, it's the whole, you know, innovation piece, and obviously the Taiwan, you know, pipeline, you know, powering their story and what's going to happen with China. I think there's, you know, potential longer term for, you know, increased antagonism between the U.S. and China to potentially hurt a player like Nvidia. But actually, I have a friend of mine, Sean Rain, who's based in Shanghai, and he's you know, he does consulting over there. He's lived over there for the last like 25 years, and he actually thinks that the Trump election is going to be more bullish for Chinese U.S. relations than had Paris you know, been elected, and because he sort of saw the Biden regime as much worse in terms of a two-way relationship. He says a lot of the Chinese just see Trump as a businessman, and so there's an ability to kind of do transactional deals between the U.S. and China where it makes sense for both sides. So we'll have to wait and see. But you know, the good news for Nvidia investors is just that, you know, like they've sort of written everything down, and so if anything comes from the relationship with China to Nvidia, it's going to be gravy.
You know, it's what I couldn't tell is if there was a relationship there between Jensen and President-elect Trump. I mean, how important is it that, you know, Jensen has some form of, I guess, interaction with the incoming president? You know, we've seen Elon Musk really be supportive of President Trump, the tech community, VC community. I mean, Jensen has maybe stayed off to the side. Is that a good thing, or is it a risk?
Well, I mean, he's got a strong relationship with Elon, and so Elon's definitely now got that in with President Trump, and so you know, anything that you know, Elon wants to build his business, whether it's like more chips that support, you know, XAI or Tesla or SpaceX or whatever. You know, if he needs the government's support of Nvidia, you know that you know, he's got a direct pipeline into Trump there. So I think Jensen and Nvidia will be served well through that relationship. I don't think, you know, there probably will, you know, we'll probably see a return to these like CEOs summoned to the White House for these like big White House, you know, round table meetings, you know, uncomfortable, you know, looking faces.
I already sent the Yahoo Finance cameras there. They're just camped out there in front of the White House. They're Eric, you know.
I'm looking forward to those again.
I don't know if we are, but yeah, but look, I'm listening to you, and like, I don't. It's unclear to me, like, what takes Nvidia's stock down. This is a company that's, for all intents and purposes, over the next 24 months, potential trade war, they're going to do well. You have AI infrastructure build-outs, they're going to do really well. Like, I mean, where's the hiccup, man?
Well, I'm a bull, obviously, but if I was going to try to be an Nvidia bear and you come on here and like take the stock down, Brian, with you, like here's what I would say. I would say it's just as good as it gets. You know, like, oh, isn't AI kind of overhyped? Look at Supermicro as a sort of cautionary tale this year.
What a disaster!
Yeah, just like total round trip. Now they're down, I think, something like 24% on the year after being up, you know, whatever, you know, hundreds of percent earlier. So is that a sign that you know, we've gotten a little too ahead of our skis in terms of, you know, AI? And Nvidia is obviously the sort of the kingpin of the space. if there's any bit of like hesitation or signs of plateauing in sort of in orders, is that just going to like totally take down the stock? So I think that's the worry every quarter with Nvidia earnings for the last year and a half or so. And it's just that we and kind of the most recent quarter went back in August, I think, was just after you and I spoke about it. There were just all kinds of concerns about, remember the mask delay? There was this sort of like technical kind of mask detail that was apparently going to affect the Blackwell chips rollout at the end of this year, and they mentioned it. But how big was it? And sort of they use the words, we're going to do billions of dollars in the final quarter of the year. And so does billions mean just like one or two? Like you get all this sort of like around the campfire kind of interpreting like parsing every word and what does it all mean? And then, fast forward a few months now, Blackwell's sold out for a year. The technical issues in the rearview mirror, we were all obviously kind of over indexing on the importance of these like minute details in the moment, and the thing just sort of powers ahead. So I think that's the challenge as the investor, is sort of like taking a step back and saying, is AI over, or are we just sort of getting started, and the investments are just getting started, and therefore the need for these chips is just still going to continue for the next year or two or three?
Yeah, in August we're talking about product, not mistakes or just concerns in August, but now we're talking about Nvidia joining the Dow, joining other tech companies. I mean, how big a deal is it that Nvidia joins the Dow? Is it a catalyst for another 30% move? And then like how do you feel about the Dow, like the Dow 30 now having a lot of tech companies as opposed to like old school smokestack companies?
Yeah, it's important. I don't know that it's going to be a continued underlying bid for the shares from kind of a new source, and obviously there are a lot of other sources, in terms of ETFs or kind of other indices that have to buy Nvidia shares as it sort of joins those. But it is a rebranding for sure. There has been a rebranding of the Dow. I mean, for years, I used to turn on CNBC or Yahoo Finance, and you'd see that the Dow index was sort of like the most prominent index that seemed to be mentioned, over in importance compared to the S&P 500 or the Nasdaq or something. And you were sort of scratching your heads, like, why do we continue to talk about like 100-point or 1,000-point increments in the Dow, when it's pegged to these like old economy companies that just aren't that important. So that's changed. It's good that Nvidia is part of the mix now. It's more representative of kind of like the most important stocks that in America. So I think that's a good thing.
In the last few minutes of the show, we like to get hot takes from our guests, and I want to get your hot take on this, Eric. I recently talked to Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger after they had another challenging quarter, maybe some signs of minor green shoots, but take a listen to hear what he had to tell us about the state of his business.
The two that really deserve a little bit more conversation, one is the severance charges, that are associated with the people actions that we've taken. And those people actions, hey, we're right-sizing the business. We did a clean sheet, analysis of what it means to have a competitive business structure for the long term for foundry and products. And the other one then is we did have some equipment impairments. And we had a bunch of equipment associated with Intel 7. And a lot of that was driven by the COVID era PC expectations. And now as we moved on to our future process technologies, Intel 3, Intel 18A, that's all based on an EUV or a next generation equipment base. So we had a charge or an impairment associated with those prior, and that affected our earnings or the published views of those.
And Eric, Pat essentially was talking about the write-downs, billions in dollars of write-downs of assets on the business. It was jarring. You don't expect to see that stuff from Intel. What's the end game with a company like that? And we've spent this whole program talking about the amazing wonder that is Nvidia and how much they may grow sales and earnings. But is it important to have an Intel in the United States making chips?
I think it is important from a U.S. nationalist perspective, but if you're just an investor and you're thinking of like, do I put a few bucks into Intel stock at 23 or whatever it is now? I think that's a much tougher kind of proposition because I think like the comments from Pat there, it's not just how complicated all these different announcements make it to kind of value where's the operating business at today. It's just been the continued drumbeat of these new write downs, new layoffs, new right sizing, trying to adjust to kind of this new world order that we're in. And show signs that the turnaround that's been he's been working on for a few years is actually taking hold. So where are signs of a bottom? I think that's the danger in jumping in. I hear folks like Scott Galloway saying, "Oh, this is a great opportunity for a private equity to jump in." Well, I mean, you're talking about like a 10-year turnaround plan here. So it could be that, Blackstone or whoever is going to, announce some big deal with them tomorrow. But do you want to put your money into this now? Is it going to be dead money for the next 6, 12, 18 months before there's an announcement with private equity or before the board kind of, cuts things with, with the current CEO? So I think the other concerning thing was just like they talked up their Gaudi chip, which is their AI kind of response to Nvidia, and they just had to announce on the most recent earnings that they're not going to hit their 500 million in revenues for this year that they put out there, which in the grand scheme of things compared to an Nvidia is just like sort of peanuts. So I just think they're stick with an Nvidia or stick with companies that are working and that have real businesses that are growing, as opposed to placing your bets on hope that just tomorrow there's going to be some announcement of some company coming in and buying it. I mean, the thing is cheap, it's near book value, but I don't know. I'm not interested.
Eric, real quick, I have like 15 seconds just to make sure. Are you still looking for the market cap on Nvidia to double?
I think the case I made here with you last time is that like it's not crazy expensive. There are times where there's announcements and Nvidia's shares do get bid up, and if they do, this thing could go up to $250 a share and then some. And I think there is that chance that that's going to happen over the next 6-12 months. So we'll see. Maybe it'll be the an amazing Blackwell quarter or something like that. But people will suddenly say this thing is the greatest thing again. And rush back in, and then when it gets like over expensive, you might want to trim back your shares. But it just hasn't been that expensive yet on a historical basis when you compare it to where they traded before.
So I always love talking to you, Eric. You make big calls backed up by research and a real passion for what you do. EMJ Capital founder Eric Jackson. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for coming back on Opening Bid. We appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
All right, and that's it for the latest episode of Opening Bid. Be sure to hit us with those 5 stars on Spotify. We feel the love on Spotify, really blowing up there. We're also blowing up on Apple Music. Hit us with those great reviews. And of course, drop those likes on Opening Bid on YouTube. Feeling the love over there as well. That's it for the latest episode of Opening Bid. I'm Yahoo Finance Executive Editor Brian Sozzi.